So, we're here for the second devlog for my game Cabin Curse. For those of you who have not heard of the game, my game Cabin Curse is a psychological horror game. It's based around two friends, Clint and Eddie, that go to this cabin in the middle of the woods for a hunting trip. Basically, they scouted it out and found it, and it's like an abandoned cabin. But they go there to use it as their kind of like home base while they're on this hunting trip. And basically the cabin is super duper haunted with a really dark past to it, and a whole bunch of bad stuff happens. So this is the second devlog for Cabin Curse. Like I mentioned in the first devlog, I want to do these once a month. And yeah, it's been about a month since I did that first one, so we're going to dive into what I have gotten done since the first one. But I want to briefly go over what I got done in the first one so I can kind of explain everything that's been done since then. So in the first devlog, we basically just went over like what the game was, how I had all the story written, and basically everything that was done in that one was mostly just like basic mechanics like interacting, opening doors, and crouching, just like super duper basic mechanics, nothing too crazy. And art-wise, all we had done was with the general structure of the cabin done, and we had the kitchen fully done, and I was in the middle of working on the living room. Since then, I haven't done a ton of art. I did finish off doing the art for the living room, but ever since then, I've been more focused on code. So I've added a whole lot more to the code. So since we left off with talking about needing to get the living room done, we'll just go ahead and start there, and I'll show you everything that we've got done. So in the living room, we now have the couch, I believe, was already in. This thing was already in. But the things I've done to finish it off is like adding in these picture frames over here, a little a cross hanging on the wall, and I've got like a newspaper over here. This will be interactable later, like you can pick it up and read the thing on it. I haven't added that in yet. But we also have these little side tables that you can open up. And I'll put some things in here too. Like I'm gonna have like random little lore things strolled around that I'll be adding in later. And that's basically what these kinds of things will contain. I've filled this guy up. We've got, you know, different books up here. We've got some different vases and pots and stuff. And we can now interact with the wood burner. So the wood burner is now interactable. This is used in an objective later on in the game. But this is here for a purpose, but you can open it and you will cook like an item in here later. And I've added a rug, so we got this guy now. Coffee table is filled with all kinds of things, beer bottles, cigarettes, also got some cigarette butts on the floor. We've added this blanket onto the couch. I sculpted this blanket out, added a little bit more flavor to the couch. And yeah, that's generally everything that's been done with the living room. Not really like a whole lot that needs to go into it, so yeah. So the next thing we'll dive into is Eddie. So I didn't really go over Eddie a lot in the previous devlog, but Evie is a essential part of this game. He's the buddy that found this cabin, and you know, he's you know, your companion along for the ride in this whole entire journey. And yeah, since the last devlog, I've added him in. So yeah, for all the characters, I've been using Character Creator 4 for all of them. So every character I've put into the game so far has been made with CC4. It's been a pretty, you know, straightforward process. The only one that I've done any like extra detail to is the Burnt Bride, which all I really did was I made her character in CC4, and then I took her into Substance Painter and redid her textures. So this is how I'm making the characters. So I just bring these guys into Unreal Engine, and Eddie himself does quite a bit in the game. Every bit of his movements is scripted, so I'm not using behavior trees for him. So if we look inside of his blueprint, every bit of his actions are super duper, they're very scripted. Like everything that he does is very purposeful. Like he's not doing anything super dynamic or anything, because this is like a story game, you know. The way that it's structured, he doesn't really need a lot of dynamic things going on, so I've chosen to just do a lot of his things in Blueprint. And as you can see here, I'm just using enums to, you know, decide what objective we're on, and he'll do he'll do different things. I got his movement logic all over here, and yeah, so his blueprint has gotten fairly large. I've even collapsed some things down just to start saving some room. We still have a ways to go, and this blueprint will probably get much larger. Some of the things he does, though, he's essential, and basically think of him as like almost like a guide in a way. A lot of the times, you know, if you get confused, a lot of the times you can go up to Eddie and he basically explains what's going on or what the plan is in a lot of ways. Or you know, in the middle of like some objectives and stuff, you'll have a lot of dialogue with Eddie, so he's gonna be your key friend in the whole entire game. But some cool things that I have implemented in with him is like, you know, when the game starts, he's driving the vehicle, so the opening scene, you know, he'll start with driving the car. You'll have a conversation with him on the way into the cabin. He doesn't really just follow you around. More so, if anything, you follow him around more times. There are moments where he does follow you in certain situations, but most of the time he's gonna kind of lead the situation. There's also moments where like he'll tell you to do a task, but he'll also go and do a task. So there's an objective that we have where like the one I mentioned earlier, where you'll cook a thing in here. So basically there's these wood logs outside, so you'll come out here and grab all these wood logs and fill the wood burner, and while you're doing that, Eddie will come and get a frying pan that's inside one of these cabinets. And also after the food is done, he'll also come and grab some plates and bring them back to you, and then you put the food onto the plate, and then you'll have a conversation with him at the dinner table, and then after that he'll also go and grab some beers for you, and yeah, then you'll have a little drink with him, which that's pretty much where I am in the story so far. So the next thing I want to talk about is some of the big systems that I've updated since then. So in the last devlog I mentioned adding in flashlight, shotgun, and dialogue system and all of that. So first thing we'll dive into is the shotgun, just to kind of briefly go over some of what we have for that. So for the shotgun mechanics, I ended up having to change a lot of how I had my character structured. So like I was saying, I am using CC4 characters, and I originally brought the character in as one full mesh, but after starting to work on the shotgun and, you know, trying to get it to look better, I ended up going with bringing in his arms separately and basically attaching that to the camera, so that when you rotate, you know, it just looks way better. You know, it's basically setting it up like first-person arms, and basically when you don't have something like the shotgun equipped, you just go back to your normal body. So basically when you equip it, you know, you'll transition to the arm setup, and then when you go back out, you just transition over to your body. And I went with this method just to have it look as clean as possible with the shotgun, because like when I was just like using the full body arms, like it was hard to get the camera positioned properly, and it was also hard to, you know, get this smooth look with, you know, when you're looking around and trying to aim. Also, something else that I have with the shotgun is when you're aiming, you get some weapon sway, and when you shoot, it will accurately shoot to exactly where that weapon sway is. If I turn on the trace for this guy, and when I shoot, you'll see it'll hit directly to where you're aimed at. I've made the capsule pretty big, like the sphere trace for when you shoot. I mean, you're shooting a shotgun, so it's, you know, it's gonna be a pretty decently sized range. But yeah, also something to mention with the shotgun is I went with the route of not having ammo. So this isn't necessarily a survival horror game. It's more of a psychological horror game, and it's also going to be a really short form horror game, like maybe 30 minutes to an hour long. So I just decided to not deal with ammo. I don't really find it to be necessary for this project. Mainly for the length of the game. If it was going to be a bigger and longer game, I would probably deal with it, but with the length of it being a pretty short game, I don't really feel justified in adding, you know, having the player have to deal with ammo and and stuff like that. So infinite ammo, and yeah, that's pretty much it for the shotgun. So the next thing we'll talk about is just the flashlight system. So from the start of the game, you are equipped with a flashlight. You don't have to find this or anything. You just use an input to turn it on and off. And similar to the shotgun, I am also switching to just using the arms. And as you can see, when you equip this stuff, I just shift this dude's arms way the hell back so they don't show up in the camera. But yeah, so flashlight. Not really a lot to go over with it. It's it's just straightforward. It's a flashlight. You shine it. You look at things. You can crouch, walk around, aim the flashlight, and it does what a flashlight's supposed to do. The next thing I want to go over is the dialogue system. So the dialogue system is probably one of the more complicated parts that I've had to go through. And just to kind of do a brief overview of what I've done with the dialogue system is, so the dialogue system is basically all run through a data table. So I have a full data table for every line in the game. So basically, I'll just go over the structure of this data table to kind of show you how it works. So the main things I'm using is the speaker name. So whoever is talking, I put their name in, I put the line in that they are saying, and then there's going to be player responses. So the dialogue system is built to be very dynamic. You can have multiple responses, and depending on these responses, I can also set unique responses to those responses. So I built it in a way so that dialogue can be very easily branched off into a bunch of different paths, and yeah, it was definitely one of the more complicated parts to set up. A very robust dynamic dialogue system. I actually have never built one of these before, so it was quite a challenge. But as you can see there, if you look in the data table here, there is a ton of dialogue in the game. So a lot of the code for this is being run in the widget blueprint itself. And I also have a blueprint component for dialogue. So basically, all I'm doing in here is when I end dialogue, I just call different actions to happen whenever a dialogue ends. But whenever I start a dialogue, I have a blueprint interface function that I call, where I clear whatever the player responses are. I set the dialogue info, and then after it's set, it calls the update UI, and that's basically all that's going on in the component. It's very simple. The real meat of it is in this function right here. And I'll just briefly go over it. So first thing I do is I check to see if this widget is visible, and if it's not, I set it to be visible, and I change the game mode. And once that's done, I set the speaker name, I set the dialogue text, and I have this allow any click, so that when you're clicking on dialogue, I have some functionality being run on an any click inside of here. So for whenever you have these branching dialogue player responses, which is what's going on right here. Player responses, I set all of these text here, and if you have player responses, I just don't allow for this functionality to work right here. And yeah, basically, I'm basically just checking to see if there's player responses, and if there is, then we run this code right here that is, it just, sets the responses, sets the text, and if there isn't, it runs through this code and just, collapses any of it. And we also allow any click, which runs into this function right here, which runs the next node. And this function right here basically just says what to do after all the responses are done. So basically, it'll update the dialogue, which is that interface function that I showed you a minute ago that was in the event update dialogue blueprint here. It's called update dialogue right here in dialogue. So basically, it just runs that function, this one right here. So we call that here, and we're just basically checking to see if the next node, we're basically just checking to see if there is anything in the next node, and if there is, or if there's, if it's equal to nothing, which basically means there is no next node, then we basically just call end dialogue. And yeah, we're just checking to see, if anything is next. And if not, we just call end dialogue, which is what I mentioned earlier. if you come into here, we just have basically an enum to say exactly what we want to do whenever we end in a dialogue. So also something that I am doing is I do have a current dialogue line enum. So basically every time I start a new dialogue, I add that dialogue line into the current dialogue lines, so that when we end dialogue, I can have very specific things happen whenever a dialogue line ends. I'm also running this switch on Eddie. So if we go into his code real quick, I can show you exactly what I'm doing for that. So for certain situations, I want Eddie to have unique responses after dialogues end. So we're doing a lot of that stuff here. So like maybe he'll move, or you know, it just calls a bunch of different actions for him to do whenever we're done talking to him. So definitely it was a very, very complicated system to put together, and I'm pretty proud of myself for it. I think it turned out good. It's been pretty robust so far, and yeah, I dig it. Alright, so the next thing I want to talk about is the progress that I have made on the story and objectives. So I'll go in and I'll show you our objective list right now. So I also have an enum for that called current objective. And if you look here, this is all the objectives of the game. There are 26 objectives through the entire game, and currently I am on objective 10, which is eat dinner. This one is not fully done, but everything before this is fully coded and fully locked in. And the objectives have been the absolute most work so far, because I'm not really building a dynamic objective system. I've seen people do systems like that where they just have like, you know, a dynamic objective system where they can plug it in certain scenarios, and you know, they'll have 3 different kinds of quests or objectives that they can do. I'm not doing it that way because I want everything in the game to be super purposeful. Like, it's like I don't want anything to feel repeated. Like, yeah, there's a gameplay loop, but it's also like I don't want every quest to be like, you know, go fetch an item, go kill this thing. You know, when you make dynamic objective systems, it's hard to make a story that has purpose, I feel like. So I am not doing that. I am hard coding every objective, so it's very, very time consuming. Yeah, it's basically every objective is done in that way. It's been a lot of work. But just to kind of go over some of the objectives that I have done so far, we have arrive at the cabin, turn on the lights, unpack your gear, prepare for the hunt a deer. So that's another thing. Like I mentioned, this is a hunting trip, so we do have an objective to actually go hunt a deer, which is what you cook later on as well. So you come in, you go hunt a deer, you skin it, you go back to the cabin and you fill the wood burner and you cook the deer, and then you eat dinner. And this is the objective that I am on right now, the one I'm currently working on, eat dinner. And basically right after these last 3 objectives right here, going into the second half of the game, is where all the creepy horror shit goes on. And I'm super excited to get to these objectives. I haven't made it to these, except one. One of them I have done, and that is because I wanted to get one of these done so I could put the trailer together for the Steam page, which is something else to mention. I will talk about that here in a moment, but just to briefly go over this objective, which I have put most of it together for the trailer. There's a severed hand wave assault that happens towards the end of the game, and this objective was quite tricky. So let me just kind of show you a bit of how I have the room laid out. So you see these boxes kind of all over the room, and I have these splines. Basically, these splines are controlling the hand waves. So basically, once the cabin goes all sorts of crazy and like bad shit happens, there's this moment where all these severed hands will start crawling through the windows. So my way around using the navigation that Unreal Engine uses to make these hands crawl through the windows, because like natively with the way that the Unreal Engine navigation system works, you can't make AI just like, you know, walk on a wall or something like that. So the route I went with is to build these splines, and when I also have these spawners. So basically they spawn on these boxes, and they will connect to the spline, and they basically on tick will move along the spline. I can dynamically change their speed as well, so like how fast they move along the spline as well. And basically, once they get to the end of the spline, they'll drop off, and that's what all of these boxes are for. All of these boxes are basically different points that they can run to, because like before I had these boxes in here, they would I just had them on a random roam, and they kept like trying to run out the door, trying to run in the rooms back here, and they were just going all over the place. It was super unorganized. So basically I just made all of these different points that they are allowed to run to, and that way it could be more organized. They're not like running in back here, they're not trying to run out the door, getting stuck in corners and stuff. And yeah, this whole entire setup probably took me 2 or 3 days to get going. And I think it turned out pretty good. It's not completely done. I just wanted to get enough done to be able to put it in the trailer. And yeah, so which brings me to my next topic. I am in the process of getting the Steam page put together. So the Steam page is put together. I'm just in the review process for getting it live and you know, able for people to wishlist. As soon as it is live, I will put a link in the description and in the comment of this video, so anyone who is interested and may want to wishlist it, definitely go wishlist it. It won't be live by the time I post this video, but for those of you that are coming later, definitely check the description and the comments. And I'll probably also make a video on the channel announcing that it's live, and I'll put the announcement trailer up on the YouTube channel as well. But yeah, I'm in the review process. Everything is set up for it, and hopefully it'll be up pretty soon. That's kind of where we're standing at right now. Let's just go over some of the next things that I'm planning on doing. So the next moves are, I'm super deep in like working on the story and just trying to like code that out and get it knocked out. Like I said, the objectives are really time consuming, so I've been kind of in focus mode on that. So I'm definitely going to focus on that for a while. I might give it like a week or 2 or so, and then I really need to start focusing on art, because like right now the only things that I've been doing art since the first vlog, like the only things I've done art for are the things that are absolutely necessary for the objectives and stuff. So we're still pretty bare on some of these other rooms. The bathroom is pretty empty other than this toilet here. A buddy of mine made this toilet for me, so hell yeah, appreciate it, Ben. And the bedroom, I will have to do some of the stuff in here soon, because one of the objectives coming up requires the bed. So I definitely have to get that set up. And also one of the objectives coming up requires some stuff done in the cellar. So the cellar is still completely empty. So I definitely need to start doing some art for some of this. So we definitely still have a ton to do. Like I said, currently we're not even halfway done with the objectives. There are 26 objectives in the game, and right now I'm on number 10. So we're not quite at that halfway mark, and we still have 3 more rooms that we need to do all the art for. So we definitely still have at least a couple of months until we start getting to a point of feeling close to the end of the game. But yeah, I guess that'll be it for this one. So if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you're new around here, definitely subscribe. If you have any feedback for me on this game, anything you might like to see, any cool ideas, anything that you like that you have seen, let me know all that down in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.